Hi there, welcome to Voice Bootcamp, a global name in unified communication. My name is Faisal Khan, CEO and founder of voicebootcamp.com. In this particular short video, I'm going to discuss about Cisco Telepresence VCS Expressway C and Expressway E. Now this is a video series from our CCNP collaboration self-study kit to discuss about the role of VCS and how they're important. Now, as you know, that introduction to CCNP collaboration, Cisco introduced telepresence as one of the topic that is to be covered in this particular certification. So a lot of time when people talk about telepresence, they often think about very expensive, big hardware platforms such as LCD screen or big 2-3 screen together with a camera on top of that. Well, that is true, but that has also changed or evolved from many years when the telepresence was introduced. Today, you have a lot of software-related, software-based solutions that are part of the telepresence umbrella. Today, for example, you have virtual machines that just act as purely telepresence component that provides various services. So one of the component we're going to talk about is called VCS, Video Communication Server. Now, VCS is basically a part of telepresence, which kind of act like a SIP proxy server and H323 gatekeeper. It is used to be a third party, and with Cisco acquiring the company, now VCS is part of the entire Cisco's umbrella, unified collaboration. So what VCS does, VCS basically allows you to register any endpoint that is either SIP standard or H.323 standard. Whether it's an endpoint audio phone or a video device, doesn't really matter. Compared to Cisco IP phone, it can only register to call manager or Cisco Unified Communication Manager. The VCS allows you to register pretty much any third-party standard SIP or H323 devices. So what is a VCS? It is a session management device, controlling of the telepresence conferences. Provides flexible and extensible conferencing application, enabling organization to benefit from increased employee productivity by allowing employee to pretty much use any device to communicate with their corporate network without having to install any VPN or complex configuration. Now, VCS will deliver exceptional scalability and resiliency, secure communication, and simplified large-scale provisioning using Telepresence Management Suite. Now, VCS also works with Cisco Unified Communication Manager or Unified CM, which is Cisco's IP-based PBX, in order to allow external device to communicate with internal device that are registered to call manager. It also provides interoperability with third-party unified communication. Pretty much designed to work with any SIP-based or H323-based IP-based PBX. Now, one of the things about VCS is that it can work with your organization infrastructure by, for example, behind the firewall or outside the firewall. Now, typical scenario that if you have a Cisco Unified Communication Manager platform, usually you don't have any IP phone that are outside the firewall. They're not usually able to register to your corporate network due to how the behavior of firewall and how VoIP packet are generated. Again, without going into details about that, basically IP phone outside the firewall could not register to the call manager inside. So the only way a company would have achieved that was to set up a VPN from that IP phone network, such as your home or hotel, directly to the corporate network. The main issue to that was that, okay, user usually have to carry a laptop, and in their laptop they would have a small VPN software. They will dial in, and they will be restricted to using the physical phone, software-based phone that they usually have. But what about the physical phone or the hardware video device? Well, that's where the problem comes in, because for them, you could, most of them are appliances, and you could not install any sort of application on them in order to establish a VPN. Also, if you are on a if you are going to use a VPN, and when you go to certain companies or certain countries or hotel, sometime the way that devices are configured on their end may prevent you from establishing a VPN. So you always have that option. Oh my God, is it going to work? Is it going to, if I go to another country, is the VPN allowed? So many factors could be involved that prevented you from joining into your day-to-day communication. Well, the VCS was designed to solve that problem. Now, the VCS is a software-based application that can run on a virtual machine or a Cisco CE series appliances. Now, as you know, the virtual machine is becoming very popular, and Cisco is pretty much deploying everything on virtual machine on their own UCS platform. And if you are going to deploy virtual machine, then you can deploy Telepresence VCS in the 3 different deployment model: small, medium, and large. Small for companies that are using the Business Edition 6000 series platform. Medium, on the other hand, designed for standard installation, which can support up to 2500 endpoint registration. Large can handle up to 5000 and designed for extra performance and scalability. Now, virtual machine requires the use of VMware platform and unified computing system in order to properly deploy. You can also go with the appliance mode. On appliance mode, you have a dedicated hardware-based solution based on UCS C220 M3L platform. Now, there are 2 variations of appliance. You got CE 500 series and CE 1000. The CE 500 designed for small to mid-sized business, which is equivalent to medium virtual machine capability. CE 1000, on the other hand, is equivalent to large scale deployment of virtual machines. So these are the 2 options you have. Again, like I said, depending on your requirement, you could use virtual machines to deploy or a physical hardware appliance. Now, the software alone can be deployed into 2 different flavors. You got VCS that are deployed as a control device, control server, and then you have a VCS that's known as Expressway. Now, the latest term that Cisco use is called the Expressway C and Expressway E. C for control, E for edge. Now, the control part of the VCS is designed to run within the internal network, local area network, where pretty much the same way the call manager or Cisco Unified Unified CM function. The endpoint has to be within the local area network, or not necessarily local area network, meaning the endpoint can register to VCS control as long as there is no netting or firewall between them. So if your endpoint are outside the your company's firewall, then they will have to set up a VPN. But what if you do not want to set up a VPN? Well, in that case, Cisco came up with a solution called the Expressway E, or the Edge. It's the same software as a control, except with a different license, that sits outside the firewall or maybe in DMZ. All the users that are outside the firewall that wish to register, they will first communicate with the Expressway Edge, which will then which will have an existing tunnel between the Expressway E and Expressway C, the control and the Edge. So the Expressway was designed to get rid of the VPN concept. So with Expressway E or Edge, you no longer need to set up a VPN. All the client has to have a Java client or any third-party video software-based client, and the security certificate that allows you to successfully authenticate and register with the Expressway, the Edge. So the Expressway Edge is designed for business-to-business video collaboration, improves the productivity of remote and home-based worker. The application will perform securely through the standard-based and secure firewall traversal call. Now, a typical firewall prevents anybody from outside to communicate with the inside unless there is a specific opening through your firewall. Well, with the Expressway, what happened is it mapped an inbound call from outside to an existing call that was inbound connection that was initiated from outside to an existing connection that is been initiated from inside already. So who initiated that connection from inside? The VCS control. The VCS control will send a signal to the expressway edge, which will ultimately create a kind of a channel or tunnel. So any return traffic on that particular port will be obviously allowed because it's already established from inside to outside. So again, more in-depth knowledge about firewalls required in order to understand that. So VCS can be deployed in a multiple environment. Just because Cisco VCS is owned by Cisco does not mean that it has to coexist with Call Manager or Cisco Unified CM platform. You could have a full IP video telephony network or even IP telephony network without the use of Cisco, without the presence of Cisco Unified Communication Manager or Call Manager. Simple for audio and video telephony. No call manager is required to register for the endpoint. Some Cisco endpoint can register, not all, to the VCS control. And almost any third-party SIP device can register to VCS control since it is acting as a SIP proxy server. Now, if you have a call manager, let's say you have some call manager somewhere here sitting, you could establish a trunk between them. And this trunk is usually known as neighbor. We'll talk about that later in the chapter. Now, the previous scenario, you have the endpoint, whether it is an EX60 or an iPhone or EX90, doesn't matter. They all can be registered directly to the VCS control, but between the VCS control on those endpoints, there is no firewall or netting device. So they all have to be kind of open without any address translation. VCS deployment with no call manager, but this one, what you're going to do, you're going to allow external client, whether it's a Java or a third-party SIP, to be able to register and communicate with internal client that you have. So similar environment, but you're going to have two VCS. One is going to be known as the control, and one is going to be known as the expressway edge. No call manager. This case, the endpoint from outside will be registered, so inside will be registered to the VCS, and endpoint from outside, what they can come in and register the expressway. So the two options you have between the control and the expressway, you're going to have what we call the unified communication traversal zone. So there will be a tunnel between them, kind of like that. So when they are communicating, they will be able to communicate through this tunnel. The traversal connection will be established between the VCS control to VCS expressway edge. Java will be registered to VCS expressway using the public DNS. Now for that, a lot of DNS configurations needs to be done, as well as certificate needs to be configured properly. The third deployment model, when you have VCS and expressway, VCS control and expressway edge are used to allow outside clients such as Java or SIP client to be able to register to the call manager inside. So what this is going to happen is you are still going to have a firewall right here, both internal firewall and external firewall. It is irrelevant as to what kind of firewall you're using, as long as it's a standard based firewall. What is going to happen is the control and edge, so expressway control and expressway edge, will form a kind of a secure tunnel, and with that tunnel allows an external Java client that is coming across the internet to pass through and go directly register to call manager. So in this scenario, no endpoint will be registered to the expressway C or expressway E. Everything will be registered directly to the call manager. Now again, that depends on your license and the keys and whatnot that you have. Now, in order to support the previous deployment model, where you have the expressway edge sitting between two firewall or in a DMZ, you need to have an advanced networking license. Advanced networking license allows the expressway edge behind the NAT or firewall to provide the netting functionality within the expressway edge. So it enables static netting functionality of a VCS expressway edge, also known as dual network interface. Now, most scenario we know that when a device is behind the NAT, it works properly, but there's no guarantee because VCS will modify the IP header, and then you have external device modifying the header, so that can cause some unpredictable behavior. If you are going to use VCS expressway edge with dual network interface, on one of the interface you're going to do netting. So as the traffic goes out from the VCS to the public network, the VCS expressway edge is going to change the IP address of the internal call manager to an external IP address or external interface address of the VCS expressway. Now, it is possible that the next hop, which happens to be another router, could rewrite that IP header to something different. Now, that's fine as long as they can all resolve back to what the original one was. Now, if you are going to do that, and if you do have a firewall in front of this VCS expressway edge, it is extremely important that the firewall outside the closer to the internet should have any SIP or H323 fix-up protocol disabled. Otherwise, behavior of the VCS could be unpredictable. Now, again, remember the VCS control or expressway C will communicate VCS expressway E or initiate a communicate to the expressway edge E. Because of that, there is no port needed to be open on a DMZ or back to the internal network, because internal traffic is initiated out to the outside. So inside to outside traffic is automatically allowed. Well, most scenario is allowed within the firewall. Think about this. If you're if you're on your desk and you want to go to google.com, so you just open up your browser, you initiate a google.com, it goes through your firewall. Your firewall is configured to allow local area network traffic to go to the internet. But when you go to google.com, there is some return traffic coming to your web browser, and that return traffic has to come cross through your firewall. So how does that allow? How does that traffic which is now from outside coming to inside? Typically, we know that the firewall is preventing from outside traffic from coming inside. Well, the way the firewall works, the traversal traffic, is that if the connection was already initiated from inside to outside, the return traffic on that same connection should be allowed. So same thing, the way this is working here. Because the VCS expressway C initiated the traffic, the VCS expressway E, the return traffic will be automatically allowed. Now, advanced networking, when you activate that, what it does, it allows two local area network on the VCS expressway, LAN 1 and LAN 2. LAN 1 will connect to internal firewall, LAN 2 will connect to external firewall. With LAN 2, anytime the traffic is going out on this direction, the VCS expressway edge will net the traffic with this public interface. Now, what is a firewall traversal? Well, firewall can be configured to allow outgoing requests to certain trusted destination. Internet not really trusted, but allows certain traffic to pretty much any destination. And from those destinations, you are also expecting a response to come back to you. So therefore, the firewall must allow that return traffic to come back through the same path. The expressway edge solution is located pretty much on the firewall, outside the firewall. So the expressway is located outside the internal firewall on a public or in a DMZ network. The VCS control or traversal and enable endpoint located on the private side, which act as a traversal client. So in this case, the control or the devices inside the network acting as traversal client, which will register to the VCS expressway edge acting as traversal server. Now, whether the VCS server can be configured as traversal server or not will depend on whether the license key that you have. Now, to configure a firewall traversal server, you need to configure zone on both control and edge server. On the control server, the zone is going to be a traversal client. On the expressway edge server, the zone is going to be traversal server. So here is my expressway C and expressway E. Two different server. They look exactly the same. Actually, they are the same. The functionality of each other will depend on the license key that you apply. So on the expressway control or C, I have created a zone called to traversal server 172.16.1.40. So that is the IP address of the server that is sitting on the DMZ. And I can see that it is reachable, it is active, and it is acting as traversal client, the type. But on the expressway, I will have edge, I will have very similar zone called to traversal client back to the internal network, and it's going to be traversal server. Now, whether you get to create a zone that is a type of traversal server or not will depend on whether you have the license for that. And if you scroll down, it will tell you the status. It is active and it is reachable. Now, whenever you configure VCS control and expressway to communicate and whatnot, you need to, if you want to support unified communication across them, VCS control and expressway edge, then you need to create what we call is unified communication traversal zone. This is when you want the external phone to register across this path to the call manager. So there should be only one unified communication traversal zone per VCS server. Now, mobile and remote access, which is part of Cisco Unified Communication Mobile and Remote Access, core part of the edge. When a device such as Java client sitting outside of your company, such as the internet, these endpoints are not within your enterprise, so therefore they cannot register directly to the call manager unless you have a VPN. To avoid that, you have this call of expressway edge solution. Off-premise access, a consistent experience outside the network for Java, EX, MX, and SX series client. Those are the endpoint. Security, it is secure business-to-business communication, because from this Java client, you will first of all get a secure connection with the expressway by downloading the SSL key, and use the SSL key to create a secure connection to the expressway edge. And from there, once it's connected and validated and everything whatnot, then you can communicate internally. So because remember, the tunnel between the expressway control and the expressway's edge are already established. Now, the gateway and interoperability service such as media and signaling normalization and support for non-standard endpoints. So any basically non-standard third-party SIP phone or H323 phone can register with a call manager from outside. So if they are third party, they can register the VCS control, and if necessary, interoperate with unified CM registered device over a SIP trunk. So there are few configuration that needs to be done in order to support this. First of all, DNS and NTP must be configured. We must enable the unified communication mode with mobile and remote access, and VCS control must be configured with an address details of the communication server, call manager server. We also need to incorporate each other's certificate, expressway edge certificate, into the VCS control and vice versa, so that you can trust them. A zone is a collection of an endpoint, either all registered to single system or located on a certain way, in such as via enum or DNS lookup. You can configure up to 1000 zone, and each zone configured as one of the following zone type: Neighbor is like a normal SIP, a normal trunk to that particular zone. For example, if you want to create a trunk between VCS control and the call manager or unified CM, you just simply create a neighbor. But if you want to create a trunk between VCS control expressway C and expressway E, you will define one of them as a traversal client, the E as a traversal server. Or you can create an enum, DNS, and unified communication traversal. A VCS also has a default zone configured, which represent any incoming call from an endpoint or other devices that are unregistered or not recognized as belonging to a local zone of the VCS server. Now, keep in mind, VCS control will automatically generate a neighbor zone between itself and every call manager node that it detects when the system is configured for mobile and remote access. So it will automatically create a link between them. And for if you have a Microsoft Link server, it will also generate a neighbor zone named to Microsoft Link server via B2B UA. Now, VCS can be deployed in a cluster of up to 6 VCS servers working together. Each VCS server in a cluster is a peer of every other VCS in the cluster. It can nominate one peer as a master from which all relevant configuration is replicated to other peers in the cluster. It can increase the capacity of a VCS deployment compared to a single VCS server, provide redundancy in a rare case that VCS become inaccessible due to network or power outage. All peers in a cluster must have a valid identical configuration for subzone, zone, link, pipe, authentication. So it's extremely important that everything is configured exactly identical. You should only make configuration changes on the master VCS server, which will then replicate it to all other VCS downstream. Do not adjust any cluster-wide configuration until a cluster is stable with all the peers running. VCS use IPsec to secure communication between each clusters. Alright, so end of this module. So like I said, VCS control, also known as expressway C, VCS expressway, also known as expressway E or edge. Control usually reside on internal network, while expressway is on the DMZ or outside the firewall. VCS control initiate a traversal connection with expressway and keep the session open for return traffic. Thus, no need to open any firewall hole for that. That's pretty much it about the overview about telepresence, control, and expressway. I hope you enjoyed it and hope to see you in the next few other lectures.